everyone. So we're in for a treat today. So 35 years after its release, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, it remains one of the greatest action films ever made and arguably the greatest sequel in cinematic history. Now, some people would argue Empire Strikes Back, some people would argue Aliens, my mother would argue Aliens. Some people would argue, I don't know, Captain America the Winter Soldier. Some people would argue Mad Max the Road Warrior, and so forth and so forth. And directed by James Cameron, the film accomplished what many believed was impossible. It surpassed an already iconic original while redefining what audiences expected from the blockbuster of filmmaking, which is insane, right? And released in 1991, Terminator 2 continues the story of Sarah Connor and her son John Connor, played by Eddie Furlong and Linda Hamilton, respectively, the future leader of humanity's resistance against Skynet. When an advanced liquid metal assassin, the deadly T-1000, performed well by Robert Patrick, is sent back in time to eliminate John before he can fulfill his destiny of humanity, responds by sending a reprogrammed T-800 Terminator, once their greatest enemy, to become John's protector. Now, I can only imagine I can really only imagine what audiences were like when they first saw that trailer, where it was like, yo, the Terminator's back and he's here, but he's protecting Sarah Connor instead of trying to kill her. That is crazy. That is crazy. And the one thing I love about Terminator 2 is that they play it up like they're both trying to find them, putting Robert Patrick in the cop suit, right? And then Terminator's just in his regular thing. And that scene when they first meet each other in the hallway is bliss, bro. It is one of my favorite things ever. They walk in, he has a box full of flowers, whips out a big old shotgun and just get down. And I was like, yo. I remember when I was a kid after I had seen the first one and then I saw the second one and I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like it blew my mind. Obviously I wasn't around in 1991, but just it was just I didn't see Terminator 2 until maybe like 2000, maybe like 10 years after it was out, maybe like 11 years. I think it was like 7 or 8 when I first saw Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And I remember just going crazy, like, yo, this movie is so cool. And yeah, it was like back when UPN played those movies on Sunday afternoons, and you just was like, okay, whatever you get. For some reason, it was always an R-rated film. I don't know why. It's where I saw RoboCop. It's where I saw Alien and Aliens. It's where I saw like Chucky, and it's like, why are all these R-rated movies on a UPN on Sunday afternoon, edited crazy, right? And Terminator 2 really is one of those things because I love race against time stories. I don't know what it is about a race against time story, but I really love those kind of stories, and it's filled with so much suspense and emotion with those groundbreaking visual effects, which I still think stand up today. So that's another thing. And then let's just be honest, Terminator 2, it really is the sequel that like changed everything. It changed everything. And few sequels have had the impact that Terminator 2 has had. And rather than simply repeating the first film, James Cameron completely expanded that universe. The original was essentially a sci-fi horror thriller, right? It's about survival. You got to run from the T. It's a T one. It was a T-100, I think, or is it? Yeah, I think it's a T-100 in Terminator One, and she just has to run away from it and get away from it, and then Terminator 2 just transforms that concept into an epic action film while preserving the emotional core that made the original like really compelling. And like let's be honest, the stakes are much bigger, the action is grander and cooler, the emotional journey is deeper, and yet despite its larger scale, the film it really never lost sight of the characters. Sarah, the T-800, and John center the entire film, while the T-1000 is there for just everything cool in a movie. Like the way the T-1000 is used, that CGI is still very, very impressive, very lucrative, very innovative, and creative for that time. CGI was new at that. Like CGI was like a baby in like its rarest form back then. Most movies still went practical in 1991. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's nice to talk about Terminator 2 in those type of ways, just to let you guys know just how much I love this movie. And I guess one thing I want to say is we gotta talk about Linda Hamilton's transformation for this movie because it's like Sarah Connor. I think Terminator 1 is cool, but I do think that Terminator 2 is what solidified Sarah Connor as just one of the greatest movie heroines of all time. And gone is that frightened waitress from the original movie, and her place stands that hardened word completely transformed by the knowledge of the future. Like this, Sarah Connor knows everything now. And after the death of Kyle Reese, sadly enough, it's kind of turned her a little more jaded. And she delivers like one of the best performances in action movie history. I forgot just how good of a performance Linda Hamilton puts on in Terminator 2, portraying a woman whose determination to prevent Judgment Day comes at an enormous emotional cost. And her journey remains just one of the strongest character arcs we've ever seen. And it's true. I was like, man, James Cameron took 5 years before that, he took Ellen Ripley and made her one of the greatest movie heroines of all time. And then 5 years later with Terminator 2, he made Sarah Connor. He literally submitted Ellen Ripley and Sarah Connor as two of the greatest movie heroines of all time. They have yet to be beaten. They're still one and two. They're both goaded, bro. Like for real. And that's just real, just for real. I think Sarah Connor's escape is one of her coolest things ever. My shorty took some windshield wiper fluid, put it in a syringe, stuck it in my man's neck, and said, "Let me out." And I said, "That is the craziest way to kill somebody if she would have done it." But yeah, she does it though. And understandably, Sarah's in a mental ward because, you know, people would think she's crazy given the situation that she went through. I do think that Arnold Schwarzenegger is doing his best at being Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it is his best movie and probably his greatest role. And he was the biggest action star in the world at that time. I don't care what anyone wants to argue. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the biggest action star in the world by 1991, and the T-800 remains his defining performance. James Cameron just brilliantly reverses audience expectations by turning that villain, that terrifying villain from the original, into the story's protector, and he does it beautifully. Without sacrificing his intimidating presence, Arnold still brings that unexpected warmth, that subtle humor, and genuine humanity to a machine learning the value of human life. It's so well done. Like I always wish, like it doesn't take a lot of gravitas to play the Terminator, but the fact that Schwarzenegger found a way to make it work even more to his advantage in this one is pretty impressive. And like this relationship between the T-800 and John Connor is actually the emotional heart of the film, and it pretty much led to one of cinema's most unforgettable endings. The thumbs up going into the lava pit is one of the realest endings to a movie. I love that ending. It is so fire. It is such a culminating. It just is so worth it. Like you get to the end, you're like, yeah, he kind of has to destroy himself for real, for real. And it just goes, man. It goes so hard, bro, with the Terminator music, and my man put the thumbs up, and it's hasta la vista, baby. Like it just, bro, this movie is fire, bro. Still to this day. What else happens? Let me see. I gotta talk about Robert Patrick. I think Robert Patrick is awesome. Like I don't think there's ever a movie I've seen him in, or a television show, or anything where it's like, man, Robert Patrick sucks. I love Robert Patrick. I think he did a really good job just playing this straight laced villain. Is weird. Like the T-1000 didn't have any like aggressive facial expressions or any like I'm gonna kill John Connor. Like I think the T-1000 at first played it off really well, but trying to be a cop. And I think that's what makes the whole thing work is that he's dressed as a cop and the T-800 is dressed as the T-800. And the reality is that the one dressed as the cop to make people feel safe and protected is the one that's gonna get is the one that's trying to do all the killing. And it's just a cold, relentless, pretty much unstoppable monster. And it revolutionized CGI. Like I said, the CGI and practical effects, that liquid, it's just an iconic villain. I remember being a kid, like this damn thing, you can't beat it. You can shoot it up, you can blow it up. The only this damn thing won't die, and it is just very much all due to Robert Patrick's just incredible cold performance of just straight up, straight laced, straightforward, doing it. And I will say he did a lot of the stunts. I think he like the running. He like based that off of some actual professional sprinters and things like that. And he just committed and he did such a great job. It makes you. I remember every time I saw him in something after I saw Terminator, I was like, oh, the T-1000. I just like I didn't have anything else to call him. I didn't know his name is Robert Patrick at the time, and then when I found out who he was, I said, oh, "Okay, cool." But I used to call him just the T-1000, like till I was like 15, I think. But yeah, he does such a phenomenal job. I think Robert Patrick equally just as well as the assassin as Schwarzenegger does as the protector, and it just works out so well. And can I just say, James Cameron combining practical effects, miniatures, animatronics, and CGI, it like retains the authenticity that the modern blockbuster struggles to achieve. I really believe how remarkable Terminator 2 hold up today because of all of that. You know, there's a CGI, but there's also miniatures, some stop motion at the beginning with like showing the Terminators in the future. That scene is still beautiful to look at to this day. The explosion scene is great because it has miniatures with an actual, like, I guess some pyrokinetics and some other stuff. So when she burns alive, it it just looks so daunting, but it works because it doesn't rely on CGI to look good because it would have looked horrible in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like that scene could be done really well today if the modern blockbuster understood how to do it, but they don't. And I think that's where it is. The groundbreaking effects are what makes Terminator 2 stand out so well. What makes it sound so well. And if I want to go by practical effects, they could have done some horrible CGI with the helicopter stunt, but somebody really flew a helicopter under a bridge overpass on the highway, and I think that they thought the stunt was too dangerous. So I think the camera crew wouldn't film it, but James Cameron just got behind the camera and filmed it himself. Like that is crazy. The truck down the waterway scene is awesome. Just everything between the T-1000 and the T-800, just the whole fight sequence, freezing him, then breaking him, dropping him in the lava, and watching him freak out and die. It's like yo, every form of action with those effects in this movie, it just all comes together beautifully, and it's just so damn. I love this movie. The famous message remains just as powerful today as it ever did. The future is not set, there is no fate, but what we make for ourselves. That elevated Terminator 2 to like, there was just this lasting emotional resonance that was always involved. And that line brings it full circle to what we were looking for. It just did everything right. It's rare when a movie does everything right, especially a sequel to a really bomb first one. So it's like, yo, this movie really did everything for the most part correctly, and that's why Terminator 2 really does stand. It just stands and like it still holds up because it's just its pacing is nearly phenomenally flawless. Its practical stunt work remains breathtaking. Its emotional payoff is unforgettable. Its visual effects still impress. And most importantly, remembers that the audience connect with characters before the explosions. And I think that's why Terminator 2 has endured while so many imitators have really faded into the background. And just to like land the plane here, Terminator 2 Judgment Day isn't simply one of the greatest sequels ever made. It's one of the greatest movies ever made. Like straight up. It is one of the greatest films, act straight up cinema, in my opinion. And James Cameron delivered the rare blockbuster that excels in every category: action, storytelling, performance, visual effects, emotion, and thematic depth. And 35 years later, it remains the gold standard for action cinema and a benchmark against which nearly every blockbuster sequel is measured. And I'm giving Terminator 2 a straight up 10 out of 10 for just bomb amazing movie. It is a timeless masterpiece that proves spectacular action means little without unforgettable characters, meaningful storytelling, and genuine heart. even after 35 years. Terminator 2 Judgment Day remains one of the greatest cinematic experience ever created. Whew. And with that being said, let me know how you guys feel down below. Like, comment, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys on the next one.